What you are hearing is the sound of the native wildlife in the UAE's deserts. The calm and tranquil feeling we all get is no coincidence. We all evolved in such ecosystems. With the sounds of flamingos, for example, insects or gazelles indicating the possibility of the resources we needed for survival. Ecosystems and biodiversity today still hold the key to all life on Earth. But now, most of us are used to the hustle and bustle of the cities in which we live. And one of the greatest consequences of this is that we are broken off the natural world. And if we lose that sense, we have lost one of the most important things in our lives. As a young boy, I grew in the 21st century. Back in the early 20s, not all knew about, let's say, biodiversity loss. And it is now that I realize that the Earth back then was much more biodiverse. Just in 17 years, the whole planet has transformed. The Earth is losing 1.2 trillion tons of ice each year. The seas have risen by 8 to 9 inches. In just a decade, we have made some 160 species disappear from the face of Earth. I mostly had my adventures with my grandfather. He told me tales about the abundant diversity of life back in his childhood. And it is now that I realize that this was my root for my love for nature. I had unique adventures, spending my time chasing butterflies, catching frogs, or sometimes having very rare visits from the local wildlife, from scorpions to snakes, from hedgehogs to flamingos. And I vividly remember the time of my first visit to a rainforest, immersed in the amazing sound of nature. Seeing trees or walking past one restores your minds and bodies. That's the magic of trees. And when you're in a forest, you feel it. Go on, breathe. But at some point of time, some 10 years ago, a wake-up call. I was helping an Iranian tortoise cross the road, and never did I realize that this was the first and last time I saw one. Now endangered, this was among the first signs of change. The living world that gave stability to our planet was beginning to disappear. The animals I used to find became rarer. You had to dive deep in the oceans to find the sea urchin, and had to move deep in the deserts to see an Arabian gazelle. As we lose species, what we no longer have is the capacity of the natural world that provides the services that allows us to function. When I first started researching some 8 years ago, people referred to me as young Sir David Attenborough, nature boy, an animal expert. But I never imagined that I would one day stand here amongst you all speaking about threats like biodiversity loss or climate change. People often ask me, you research and catch all these animals, aren't you scared? Well, I'm scared up to a point. But what makes me really scared is living in a world where you can't find those creatures. What's happening now around the world is and will be far more disastrous than Chernobyl's nuclear explosion. Over 100,000 people in less than 46 hours evacuated, never to return, and the zone was declared uninhabitable for the next 20,000 years. If we continue, scientists predict that in 80 years, our planet could be 4 degrees warmer, resulting in countless species extinction, and so large parts of Earth would be uninhabitable. Ladies and gentlemen, the 6th mass extinction has begun. We are in the midst of Earth's greatest extinction event. We are losing biodiversity everywhere, and we are burning fossil fuels very, very fast. Now the question which may appear in your minds is that how is it possible that the most intelligent life form to ever walk the planet is destroying its only home? But you must also keep in mind that the natural world is a living world that exists all around us, and which is the basis of our lives. They're living all these lives all around us whilst we carry on our lives. We never get to see it. What we must do is basically think like a tree or an animal. And you'll be shocked when I tell you that through my experiences, I've witnessed that life exists in the most unexpected places, and if given the chance, it will surely recover. The amazing thing here is that unlike an Avenger movie, only one hero exists. In this story, we all can be heroes. The future is ours to write. If I can make Earth a better place, so can you. If you can, we all can. Now we must choose our path. The next big thing is of our choice. What path will you choose? A path that will lead up our planet being doomed, plagued with diseases, unreliable weather, and the onset of the sixth mass extinction? Or will you choose a path of eternal existence, where we work with nature and healthy our planet would be? We must rewild the world, an acronym that could be the next big thing in my point of view. Let me throw some light on it. R stands for regenerate. We must let forests, grasslands, oceans, and deserts reclaim their lost space. We must change with them, and in doing so, coexist and live with each other, while reduce habitats to where they once belonged. E stands for evolve. We have reached here as a result of evolution and natural selection, and so we must evolve our cities. Make buildings with green roofs and walls that can be planted in, so each building a different forest, and permeable pavements. We can also make our bricks with holes which replicate the nest of insects like bees that mimic these natural holes found in the natural world. We must also evolve our vehicles, make them quieter, and so bring bats and other noise-sensitive creatures back to our cities, while at the same time having systems that allow our rivers to flow forever. W stands for welcome wildlife. As wildlife starts to return to our cities, we must welcome them with open arms, provide them with food and shelter, make in-city oases and water bodies. What I basically mean is that our cities must turn into a sanctuary which is our home and nature's too. I stands for innovate. We must start making new products and machines that help us mimic nature even more. Did you know that only 9% of the plastic is recycled? And that means unless it is burnt, every single plastic ever made still exists on our planet. So our products must be ones that, even if thrown away, return to the cycles of nature. We must also make vehicles that are less wasteful and quieter, while at the same time finding better ways to farm. Because better farming means more forests. And we can increase forests by planting trees. And we can do so in inaccessible areas using drones. L stands for learn. We must start to introduce local wildlife lessons in schools. If people start young, this behavior will go on throughout their adulthood. We must basically make people and children become curious about what lies beyond their cities, and make farmers understand to plant crops in the right place and time rather than transporting water to where it is scarce. What I mean, we have to basically make the whole world understand that we depend on nature for everything we do. And last but not least, D, this continue. We must stop all types of harm to nature. An example includes poaching. The fun fact is, animal horns and scales are made of the same material our fingernails are made of, keratin. If they did have a medical purpose, we'd all be sawing our nails and selling them. But remember, we as consumers have the right to say, have everyone say, that I will not buy a product from you unless you have a sustainability policy on your whole supply chain that I'm buying. This is what Rewild means to me. And this can be a story where we lead our planet to an amazing recovery, and I have witnessed that we can already do so. I witnessed the return of the Arabian gazelles to the UAE's deserts. From just a herd of 160 individuals, the UAE now is home to over 6,900, the largest wild population in the world. Perhaps the best proof we have of nature's ability to recover can be seen of one of our greatest disasters, Chernobyl. The truth is, without us, nature will recover. In the 30 years of the evacuation of Chernobyl, the wild has reclaimed its space. In just a decade, vegetation began to germinate, and as forests began to appear, animals began to return. And this led to a powerful evidence that no matter how grave our mistakes, nature will ultimately overcome them. Honestly, let me tell you something. There has been no species on the planet so clever and ingenious than us, Homo sapiens. Let's live up to that name. Let's open the doors of the future, the next big thing. But again, what path will you choose? Thank you.